even with the Black Lives Matter protest, there are certain things we don't see. As such, the authorities did not suppress the protest, nor did they outright say the initial complaints were wrong. And the protesters and the troublemakers, actually they are two different groups, did not kill people, didn't put somebody else and took them in the wrong side of the movement. With a little casualties, things went on. These two things that we did not see. There is not any exclusion or that something that should be worried about. If we start seeing those two things in a larger scale, so that would be a warning sign, and then that's a concern, I would say. But it's understandable this election is very important globally because lots of countries' relationship with the US, with US is affected, and people in other countries also, because of changing of governance, is one way or the other being affected. So everybody's for their own country's benefit, for their own people benefit, and with the relationship in political and diplomacy, people follow up and to see what's going to come. Otherwise, having a stable, long-lasting governance makes the concern less for me when I see it. Because when we hear what we hear in the media, sometimes or oftentimes it can be exaggerated. Medias are fear-mongering. So this is Americans, the very country and the government in execution. They have that confidence. Even though it's not an easy time, hoping things will go well. The reasons why this nation if I compare it with Africa, they are not like the African's nation, where I come from, in my country. It has not been a long-lasting, stable form of government that people has faced at. In my lifetime, the longest governance I have experienced was EPRDF. I think in terms of years, the longest lasting form of government in Ethiopia is Emperor Haile Selassie. The land of Judah is to be called. Just to associate, I don't know, with the King Solomon dynasty, or to associate with the golden time of Ethiopia, if there was one. Like I say, or to refer the Solomon dynasty tribe or listener Solomon was important? It's because he was a nation builder, wise man, and prosperous. Though Moses married an Ethiopian woman, nobody seems to trace to lineage. Because the reason our says Moses represents something different than Solomon. My country has been filled with chaos, confusion, and warfare, especially in the last 3 years. It also lacks the infrastructure for Russian integration, as people focusing on the problem than to bring a solution to it. If people can sit down and discuss, there's no problem that cannot be solved. But people dwell, talk about it, but not focusing how to do it, what to do about it, and come up to a solution. So with the Russian integration, there's no framework. We are Oromo, Tigrinya, Amhara, Tsamai, Afar, Somalia, and the rest of 80-something ethnicity to becoming a single entity. We don't have that. Nobody is doing this. Not even me. I myself also am just talking. Actually, our country is a good example of what happened to a nation without visible external threats. In other words, steering it apart. But when we see and follow up the news and understand the country USA is not. It has a stable governance. According to election, another day in the zoo. Let it go. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry, be happy. The media, if you follow, that's a different story. Unless you use common sense and understanding, and such things can happen, but tomorrow is another day. It will pass. But if we look into it, why Georgia is important now is because two houses form the Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives. In Georgia, a person has to be elected as a Senate. In order to be elected, has to have 50% of votes in order to be getting the Senate to be elected. If there are 5 people who are running for that particular office and none of reach 50%, the highest to have runoff. Republican and Democrat has runoff. Meaning both Senate seats in Georgia, each seat have a Republican and Democrat in it. The Democratic Party wants both seats to be won by Democrats, which give them control of the Senate. The Republicans at least want at least one seat in order to remain some control of the Senate. If Democrats win only one seat, they share control of the Senate. and vice versa, actually. However, the Republican insists to block Democrat control of all three major portions of the government. With the president, and to win the two seats, Senate, Congress, that's a big power shift. If Democrats won the two seats, they call the slots for the next 2 years, since Senate's election is every 2 years. It's the Republicans that turn Georgia a battleground, because if they don't have the Senate, they're fucked, at least for the next 4 years. And both political parties have poured in a lot of money into this state election. We as Ethiopian, we are following the election also. That's our country is in the brink of breakup. Lots of people are dying with world leaders interfering in our political internal affairs. So this is also important for Africans, for Ethiopia, and for some other countries as well. But it's sad what our people went through. Lots of assassinations, massacres, but the world doesn't seem to stop it, to stop it. The crime is happening. Nobody seems to care. The song by renowned artists back in the 1980s that went, yes, for Africa, the song "We Are the World" was compelling because it brings to home the American people. They care for children. They care for women, for mothers. Now the international community doesn't seem to care. That's how it feels. If anyone can be in our shoes, our parents, our children, our relatives, our grannies, or our innocent civilians and leaders are losing their life, losing a precious life. So that's how I see and I feel as if the world community doesn't seem to care for us Ethiopians. Are we not worth keeping in power?